There are plenty of abandoned shopping malls, hotels, zoos, theme parks, mansions, and even airports around the world to explore. And these mostly forbidden places attract thousands of urban explorers every year, a few of whom we will chat to in this episode.
Yeah, plus we'll touch on that blurred line between exploration and daring Insta-worthy photos. What's your take on it?
They make me pucker up inside when I see some of them because, I don't have that feeling of being bulletproof anymore.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. Our first guest, though, is Seth Lawless, an American-based photographer, artist, published author, political activist, HuffPost contributor and photojournalist. He's best known for his extensive documentation, beautiful work too, of abandoned places all over the world. That's at least what Wiki says about him. I threw in the beautiful work bit.
Fair enough. He's been documenting the most forgotten places throughout America and sharing them as part of what he says is American history that needs to be heard. But does he get a buzz out of it?
It's exciting for me to do. It all started very innocently enough. Years ago, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. For those of you listeners that don't know, Cleveland, Ohio is part of the Rust Belt region of America. And these the Rust Belt is made up of cities like Detroit, Michigan, Cleveland, Ohio, Gary, Indiana, in Youngstown, Ohio, Elyria, Akron. So you have a bunch of cities that wrap around the Great Lakes region of the country of the United States. And these were some of the biggest cities after World War II in the country. They were rich with jobs. A lot of people moved there. A lot of American manufacturing jobs. Globalization shipped those jobs overseas since World War II. And so those cities slowly crumbled. They're a former shell of itself in a way. They used to be like I said, the largest cities, and they dwindled to some of the smallest, and Detroit went bankrupt. So you have a lot of empty structures, right? You have a lot of abandoned factories where people work. You have a lot of abandoned neighborhoods where people live, abandoned schools, abandoned malls, abandoned amusement parks. It was systemic. And so as a kid, seeing that growing up, living amongst that, there was a point in my young childhood. I remember going outside and being able to do a 360 and look around. And in the back, like if you lived out west or if you lived in the plains or by mountains, you could see mountains all around you. If you could kind of relate to that. Where I lived, you could grow up, you would turn around in 360 and almost see an abandoned structure hovering in the horizon almost every place you looked. And it would stay there for years. Now, over the years, it's changed somewhat. Some areas have gotten better, some have not. And so I started documenting it really, really early on. And it was pretty much for myself. A lot of those images I have today just shoved underneath a shoebox still somewhere in a closet or something. That's how it started. It wasn't until after 9/11, which the terrorist attack here in the United States in 2001, where there was this huge kind of backlash, and I was part of this anti-war movement. We were going into invade countries that I thought had nothing to do with 9/11. Our society was switching in a way, so politically it was kind of a weird position to be in the United States at that time, in terms of the political leanings and how you express certain things. And I was very much thought a good way to do things to show a different side of America, with the premise of the United States constantly going into other countries and telling other countries how to live and how to treat their citizens. And I view that as, we have a lot of things here we could fix first. We have a lot of problems here. We should not be going around and telling other countries what to do. I think largely we've lost a little bit of the moral authority in the world because of that kind of hypocritical view. And so I thought a good way to do is take images of what I was seeing and share them. And a lot of people don't know this about my body of work. My body of work, if you look at some of the earlier stuff, was I was going to use social media to show a vulnerable side of the country, and I wanted people outside of America to see America in the way that I was showing it. Instagram started promoting those images to their popular page, which was the old Explore page. It was much different than today. The images were reaching a lot of people from Australia, Brazil, Russia, and they were shocked by what they were seeing. Most people thought, no way, that's America. That looks like a third world country. They were seeing a side of America that they'd never seen. So that's kind of where my where I really wanted my work to reach. It wasn't until I started sharing those images for a couple of years where Americans kept writing me, "Where is this? This can't be America. This is a third world country." They were having the same response. And sometimes I would look, and it was only a couple hundred miles from where they lived. So unbeknownst to me, I was in denial. I want people to see my images and see the beginning of the end of the greatest economic machine that the world has ever seen, America. And I think people were seeing that, and it scared them in a way, it fascinated them in another way, and the work kind of took off from there. But that's really how it all really started.
Were you not frightened to use those images to affect change? What happened with Disney, the theme park?
Yeah, the Disney one was interesting in a way. I had went down there thinking that, not much, right? I was going to go and document some abandoned parts of Disney. I never thought it would take off. I never thought it would go viral more than once the way that it did, especially over the world. And I was shocked. I was more shocked at what I saw once I was there. I remember going into the abandoned River Country water park, and I remember being in there. I snuck inside. I was stuck inside for hours. I couldn't get out because security was outside. And once I was inside, I knew I was stuck there for a while. But I started filming, and I started photographing very discreetly. I released the images to the press, and then all of a sudden, the first thing that I did is I went home, and I wrote my own column for the Huffington Post at that time. And I still remember it was about 11 o'clock at night. I said to myself, well, people might think these images are interesting. There was really no agenda behind it. I wasn't trashing Disney whatsoever. I run this just generic little column I wrote for the Huffington Post. It trends. It starts to get a lot of traction on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. By morning, Huffington Post calls me up and says, listen, we saw that you posted it up to the site last night. We got to take it down. Disney's very upset at you. They're threatening legal action. We're sorry. We just have to take it down. And I was a little disenchanted by that. They didn't really have my back. I wasn't bashing Disney whatsoever. So I said, okay, Huffington Post doesn't want it. I ended up calling all of my contacts. Ended up going viral. They were so livid at me for doing that. So what I did was I pretty much just hit them back.
River Country, big River Country. That's the Mouseketeers singing the praises of River Country, Disney World's very first water park. River Country. The water park opened in 1976, but the fun wouldn't last forever. River Country was shut down in 2001. And here it is today, a land without people. These dramatic pictures were taken just a few weeks ago by photographer Seth Lawless.
The images that I took show a complete abandonment of a once thriving Disney water park where there's water slides covered in vines and plants and flowers and just walkways and places that are completely overgrown, just completely abandoned and forgotten. I think that is creating an environment for alligators to thrive, to live peacefully, and to go undetected.
Did you see alligators?
Yes, but I saw several. Over the course of shooting. Yes, absolutely.
Now, that audio was from Inside Edition, and Seth was actually banned from all Disney World properties after releasing those images, which you can see in his book, Abandoned, Hauntingly Beautiful Deserted Theme Park.